And so we're going to kind of like move our way like through this pendulum to even like joy and excitement and happiness. Because even in that, like you might feel guilty for feeling those things. Retirement is one that I just think of. This is a life event that I think a lot of people think you should be feeling this. You know, you should be feeling happy and excited. And, you know, don't you feel free from your employer? But it's like actually people could be feeling the total opposite. So this is one that could go either way. Let's talk a little bit about this one.
Yeah. Well, I think especially, especially depending on the age demographic and things like that with retirement, a lot of times people feel a lack of purpose because it's like, okay, I have, you know, assigned my life to this career or this job field. And then it's like, okay, now I'm waking up and what do I do? Yeah. And I think being able to normalize that of, okay, it's going to feel like a really big transition because for most people, like you spend a lot of time in the workforce. And so even if you like, you know, take some time to be a homemaker, things like that, or you go back in, whatever, it's still a big transition. And so, I think being able to normalize that is really, really important. And I think, you know, when I talking to someone about retirement, like our loved ones in our life who are retiring, like be ready for what their gamut of emotions could be, you know, and be able to hold their grief with them. Because a lot of times we just want to point out the good things of, you have more time for your hobby or things like that, but they could really genuinely miss their work or really feel discouraged or feel that lack of purpose. And so it's really important to affirm people when they're going through that season. And also continue to ask, like, you know, bring up the old memories too of their work. Like, man, like Grandpa, tell us the stories of, you know, what was it like when you were a doctor in the Army and like things like that. Like I used to love hearing those stories from my grandparents, even after their retirement. And that helped them remember, like, I did my service well. I did my work well. But knowing that we just have to, you know, as we've talked about voicing our needs, like being able to be receptive of the needs of the people in our family, whether we're going through retirement or someone else in our family is being able to recognize, wow, we need to be able to hold that and celebrate retirement, but also know it can be hard. Depending on the person. And I also think too, making time to be with the people who are going through retirement is really important. And also for people who are retiring, make sure you get with your people. It can feel, again, we've talked about isolation and loneliness. It can be really, really hard and especially during this holiday season, that can feel so prevalent. And so it's important to say, hey, can the kids come over? Or, hey, I want to spend time with you. That reaching out is so important to make sure it doesn't feel like, wow, I'm totally losing my routine and losing my sense of identity and connection. Yeah. But anything you add to that?
Yeah, I would almost say too, like, so you I think it's not easy, but for like people to notice. So for me to notice, okay, someone's going through this and what can I do to help? And then the other side of that too is if you're the person kind of going through retirement, like if you're saying, okay, I'm approaching it or I've just gone through it. I think there's so many pieces to our work that we miss. So it could be like the people that we talk to every day. And now all of a sudden I don't have a reason to talk to them. So even just saying like, well, I could get together with them, you know, I could reach out to them. Hey, do you want to grab coffee or something? Or, hey, you know, does the department want to come out, you know, or do something. I think just it's okay to like invite yourself to like ask them, hey, do you want to get together? Especially if it's someone you were close with. Those are important things. Maybe like as you're transitioning away from your career. The other thing is even like being a mentor. So if I'm retiring from my job, what am I going to? And this is like a really big piece of people who are preparing for retirement. It's thinking through, well, what am I retiring to instead of from? So maybe it's like I'm focusing all of like what I'm losing, but what am I going to? And so that might be a big piece for just to think about. And so a lot of that when we think of like hobbies, but sometimes honestly, a lot of people will retire and they'll be so busy with like doctor's appointments because they haven't really like taken care of their health, for example. Yeah. So I think those are things like it looks different for everybody because of these different reasons. So what am I retiring to? And if there are relationships that are important to you, like from work, like try to like still foster those even outside of your career. Yeah.
And I think with any big transition, make a game plan as much as you can. I think a lot of times this is a big thing I think about with counseling is a lot of, and with finances too, we can be reactive versus proactive. And so if you know, hey, I'm probably going to retire in the next year, maybe I should go ahead and think through, what do I want my routines to look like? What do I want my schedule to be? Maybe it's okay in the morning. I want to get into tennis. Okay, I'm gonna have my tennis lessons this day, and just being so. Then once the transition happens, you can kind of step into that routine, and it doesn't feel like such a culture shock.
Yes,
and I encourage that with most transitions in life is to try to set some sort of game plan.
Yeah.
Because otherwise, a lot of times it's like with no routine set, we just kind of fall into what our emotions are telling us.
Yeah.
And our emotions are a really good caboose, but they don't need to captain our train. So it's really important to say, okay, I need to make sure I'm still like captaining my train, but I can let my feelings be here as well.
Yeah, that's a good way to say it, because I think that is. So, and I think it can even be as easy as like, okay, here's the things I enjoy. Here's the things I want to be a part of. Even if it's not like you have it figured out on day one, like here's the time I'm going to do it and all of that. It's like, I have found like when you write something down, it happens. If you don't write it down, you'll forget about it. You'll lose it, whatever. So writing things down, just making a list so you can always look back at it and say, oh yeah, that was that one thing I wanted to do. And then you kind of, like you said, you start to build in, well, what does this look like? And also probably not like trying to do everything on day one. Like I'm going to learn tennis, and then I'm going to be sewing, and then I'm going to be, whatever
one
that
step
is.
at a time. Yes. Because it can get discouraging if you try to do everything, and then you're like, and I think knowing capacity is going to be different. And that's a big transit of retirement of like, man, like I used to work like super long days. Okay, maybe your capacity isn't that anymore. So maybe it's, okay, I'm really busy for like 5 hours a day. Okay, that's fine. Or maybe I have a day where I totally just need to be at home and like work and getting stuff together for my house. That's totally cool. So I think it's really important to be, again, realistic with ourselves.
Yeah, it's kind of this theme of just, I feel, being realistic, but also like being self-aware.